Good morning. We're heading into week 5. I guess we're in week 5. And so today mostly I want to talk about chapter 6 and the chapter 6 assignment. But before we go there, I am curious to know what you think about these videos. This is the first term I've really done something like this. And so if you think they're too long, if you think they're too short, if you'd like more attention to assignments, if you'd like more feedback on something, will you please drop me a line? I really would like to know what your thoughts are. This is an online class, and this is an analysis based sort of a course, and we're going to be heading more into that. So I want to be sure I'm giving you what you need. Okay, so please do feel free to drop me an email or a course message or call me, but do let me know what you think. Okay, thank you. All right, so talking about chapter 6. We'll talk about chapter 6, and then we're going to talk about the chapter 6 assignment a little bit. So chapter 6, we're getting into some more heavy-duty analysis, data analysis related to opportunities for new products. So chapter 6 is all about attribute analysis. And the chapter starts out by talking about why customers buy a product. And you can think about that for yourself when you go to the store and pick out one product versus another. What is it that's impacting your decision there? This chapter, these authors are putting forth the opinion that we choose our products based on a collection of features, on a collection of attributes. So attributes can be features, which might be the color of a product, the fact that a pot has a lid, for example. Maybe you want a red pot with a lid. Those would be features. Functions is another category of attributes. This might have to do with the way it works. Can you put this pot in the oven or on the stovetop? Does it have a good handle that's easy for you to use to move the pot around, pick it up and move it over to the table? Those would be functions. And finally, benefits is the third category of attributes. So what does this product do for you? What do you get from it that you would consider a benefit? Does it cook your food well? Is it easy for you to use? Is it making your life better or easier in some way? Okay, so you definitely need to know those three categories of attributes. And so the point here with this chapter is that depending on how you combine different attributes, you're going to come up with a different product. And so this chapter is going to talk all about attribute analysis and techniques that we have as marketers to look for new ideas by combining attributes in different way and trying to understand how customers like one combination versus another. Okay. All right. So most of the chapter is focused on gap analysis. And so what is going on with gap analysis is that we are looking at combinations of attributes to identify where our product sits in the market, where our competitor products sit in the market, where our customers want products based on attributes. And so really, gap maps, they're called, are mapping out the market based on perceptions. Okay, so there's three major categories of gap maps that are covered in chapter 6. Determinant gap maps are based on managerial judgment. And so a manager somewhere, and he may have a lot of expertise and be very qualified to do this, but he is determining the determinant attributes that are differentiating and important for a product category. And so he's then evaluating different products on the market based on those determinant attributes and plotting them on a map. So once you do that, then you can see where the different products lie in relationship to one another, where the competition is going to be maybe the most heavy. And you might also be able to see windows of opportunity. So if there are areas in the map that are not being addressed by a product, then you may have an opportunity there to put out a product that would fill that void. Okay. All right. So perceptual gap maps, on the other hand, are in two categories. There's an attribute ratings sort of a map, and in this scenario, you are collecting from consumers their perceptions on a collection of ratings. So you might be comparing, in the book they talk about swimsuits, and I think it's style and comfort. So they may look at the style of a swimsuit and all the different swimsuit choices versus the comfort level of all these different swimsuits. So one thing that happens with perceptual gap maps is that you really are needing to hone down to the attributes that are most important. And so when you're very first starting working with perceptual maps, AR maps, you don't know necessarily what those attributes are. And so you may have a long list of different attributes you're asking people to rate products on. And so the book talks about techniques that are used to trim all of that information down to a meaningful collection of factors, they're called, that you would then plot on the map. So I do want you to know what some of those techniques are about. Know what the scree is, know what an eigenvalue tells you, know factor loading is. So understand those concepts. But we're not going to do anything that heavy duty with our work in this class, but I do want you to have that introduction, okay? Okay, so know what a snake plot is? I'm trying to think what else is in there that you should understand. That's all that's coming to mind. All right, so, but the bottom line there is you are collecting perception ratings from consumers, and ultimately figuring out which of the attributes or factors, they'll boil down to factors, are the ones that are important, and then you'll plot those on a map. Now, is it possible that you are not identifying an important attribute with an AR perceptual map? Absolutely. Is it possible that consumers' perceptions will change, or that you're not appropriately collecting those ratings? Absolutely. So there's some weaknesses to perceptual gap maps, but they are very useful, again, in giving you a window, a visual picture of where products live in the market according to consumer perceptions, and again, where there may be opportunities for you as a company. All right, so perceptual gap maps that are looking at overall similarities. This is the third category of gap maps that are presented in the chapter. And in this scenario, you are understanding or recognizing that there may be attributes that you cannot identify. And so in an attempt to collect perceptions that might encompass all of those potential attributes that might be important, in this case you're asking consumers to rate pairs of products according to how similar they are to each other. This technique is valid and able to help you take that perception data and use it to plot the perceptions that consumers are giving you on these pairs to show how products position relative to one another according to overall similarity. Okay, so those are the three types of gap maps you need to know something about. All right, so just a final few points about gap analysis. If you have a new product that's representing a really new concept that consumers will not be familiar with, in these cases, gap maps don't necessarily work very well because you have to be able to rate your perception of different attributes, and so you can't always do that with an extremely new to the world sort of a product. Okay, so another point here with gap maps is that just because you have a void in an area of a perceptual map, that doesn't mean you actually have demand there. It just gives you a window for where there's not a product filling that particular combination of attributes. So don't assume that having a gap in a map means that there's demand there. And finally, you may have a gap in a map, that represents an opportunity, but will require some sort of a technological advancement to be able to fill that particular need. So the example in the book had to do with pain relievers. Needing a pain reliever, the market did want a pain reliever that was both strong and gentle, but the technology wasn't there to allow for that combination. So science needed to catch up in that case. Okay, so that's really all I want to say about Chapter 6. And so let's talk about the assignment a little bit here. You're going to be presented with a number of values related to data points related to different smartphones that are on the market. And so what I'd like you to do with this assignment is assume that these attributes are factors that you can plot on a perceptual map. And I want you to do that. So if you're actually going to do 2 perceptual maps, I'd like you to drop pictures of these maps into your write-up for the discussion post. But some people always seem to have trouble doing that, so I've allowed you to attach them for this assignment. Okay, so for your first map, you're going to be looking at 2 attribute combinations for the different competitor products on the market, but they need to not be price. Okay, so choose 2 other ones. And then for the second map, you can choose any 2 combination of attributes for the different competitors. And so then you're just going to talk about those. What does the gap map show you? Please try to use scaling on your maps that are going to give you some spread among the competitors. In other words, if they're all bunched up in one area, you're not going to see that there's an advantage for one particular product versus another. So try to spread your scaling out a little bit to show, to really show the differences between the competitors. And what else is in here? I think just the first two points there are the ones that people tend to have trouble with. So I just wanted to give you a little example, and this is bogus data, but I just picked out of the air values for weight and values for screen for these different products. And I made myself a map and I plotted those. And so this is a fairly uninteresting map. Yours will be much more interesting, but I wanted to show you that this is actually what you're doing, is plotting these attributes. You're assuming these are important factors, and you're putting them on a map, and then you're just going to talk about them. Okay? So that's what we're looking for Chapter 6. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm definitely available to help. So, and also do let me know if you have feedback on these videos, and I'm sorry that my allergies have hit me so hard this year. It doesn't make me a very good screen candidate, but oh well, I guess I never was anyway. Anyway, y'all have a good week, and we've got exam 2 coming up this week, so let me know too if you have questions on that, but that will open up on Thursday, and I guess I will be seeing you next week. Thanks. Have a